Okay, let's go ahead and get into another game. Always good to win the die roll, especially with a Stoneforge Mystic deck. Hit the opponent with the GL, and we'll go ahead and go first. All right, we got some interaction here with the Force of Will, a Teferi, a threat, and I think we'll keep it. I'm going to start with the Prismatic Vista, just because I think that, you know, kind of conceals more information, you know. And we're just going to jam this Stoneforge Mystic. I'm not going to get... Oh, well, this is all the more reason to get an island. This true name here. So we'll get our island, play our plains, jam our Stoneforge. And I think if they wanted to counter it, I would just say okay. Let's see. Since we've got the true name, makes me want to go for the Jit, but at the same time, the Cauldron Complete is just going to end the game faster. And be harder to interact with. Perhaps that's not true. Let me think about that for a minute there. If we lose the Stoneforge Mystic, it's easier to get the Jit. Let's get the Jit here, because that can obviously pump our true name here for 4 per turn, not including the first turn. So Flooded Strand, Polluted Delta, could be anything. Basic Island. Okay. This could be any number of things, so we'll just kind of watch as their spells unfold here. Okay, didn't really gain too much information, but guess what? We drew the complete anyway. So we're going to get in there and we're going to start jamming. I just want to get this game over with. So we'll see what they have to say about that. Man, this Cauldron Complete has just been such a boon to the Stoneforge decks in Modern and Legacy. Let's see what they have here that can deal with this. It is indestructible, both the equipment and the token. Perhaps a Swords to Plowshares. Yep, I'll take my 5 life. And we've still got lots and lots of interaction here with the Force of Will, the Teferi, and I'm really hoping to draw another land here pretty shortly. I think this is probably worth a Force of Will. And I don't want to go down 4 cards in the event that they want to fight over this. So we'll go ahead and pitch this Force here, but the Monastery Mentor is going to get out of hand. I wouldn't have tapped out on 3 lands if I were them, but we all have our choices to make. Okay. I suppose what we could do is just get this true name in here. Or perhaps play the Jit and leave up the Spell Pierce. That would allow us to get on the Stoneforge Mystic next turn, but maybe I'll just keep slamming my threats. I think I'll do that. Protection from you. And I don't know what else we're going to do with this Stoneforge Mystic. Can't activate it. You know, don't really want to activate it. So I'll just get my attacks in there and try to get this game over with. So the blue fetch lands and the basics, as well as the Monastery Mentor, kind of make me feel like we're up against some kind of miracles list. So that could be rough for the true name. So what I'd like to do then is get this Teferi down to prevent any Terminuses, Entreat the Angels. Not that Entreat the Angels is really something that we see out of players anymore. I haven't cast that card or seen it cast in you know, probably at least a year or so. Oh, wow, okay. So perhaps this is for like a prismatic ending. The Thoughtseize is going to be able to nab our Teferi here, which sucks, but perhaps we need to be on the lookout for some kind of like Esper Mentor deck. perhaps Unearth. That would be something that I would look for. And this is going to make me want to prioritize holding up this Spell Pierce, although it's going to be losing value here pretty quickly as they continue to make their land drops. So our plan is going to be to get this Jit down. Nothing to Prismatic Ending there. So can't equip the Jit. But I guess the order doesn't really matter to me, at least as far as I can tell, since we can't equip it. Another land would be nice here, but, we play with the cards that were dealt. They know about the Spell Pierce. Let's just keep that up there. So Umezawa's Jit gone. And they'll just have to play around the Spell Pierce. Since they know about it. They don't know about the Prismatic Ending, but they haven't placed anything that we can use to deal or to cast that on. So one notable thing about the Cauldron Complete versus Batter Skull is that you can't bounce it to your hand. And now I'm really hoping for a mountain or a red fetch land. There it is. And we have the Spell Pierce to protect it. I'm just going to go ahead and get the mountain. And then we'll deal with this Mentor. If they want to cast something, that's fine, but I'm just going to Spell Pierce it. More than happy to get some value out of the Spell Pierce while we can. If they have something else to cast, yep, there we go. Alright, so we have got ourselves a blue deck here, so the Pyroblasts are going to be first thing I look to. Let's see, Containment Priest doesn't really do anything. I believe it's non-token. Yep, so that doesn't help us against the Mentor. We saw no red cards. Can't think of an argument for Wear and Tear right now. Perhaps the Sword of Fire and Ice would be something that we could look at. They have lots of basics, so I think we should probably trim down on that. Spell Pierce, not too bad on the draw. I do like to trim Force of Wills a little bit against these blue matchups, especially if we're bringing in Pyroblast, Red Blast, although it is less good against the man, I apologize. I don't know what's going on with me today. Force Wills are less good against these blue mirrors just because you're going to be going down on cards quite a bit. And if they want to keep their forces in, you're going to pull ahead on card advantage with the blasts here. I kind of want to fit in this Sword of Fire and Ice, especially to put on True Name Nemesis, because obviously I'm not concerned about the pro-red, pro-blue. What I am interested in is the fact that we'll be able to ping for 2, kill off monk tokens, or perhaps the Mentor itself, as well as continue to draw cards. So I think I would like to fit that in somewhere. Maybe we're just totally off the back to basics. We'll see. Let's try without it here and try to go for a more impactful card. And we'll see where this takes us. This is good because I can shuffle away the complete. Little short on interaction, but our opponent usually takes the first several turns to develop, as any blue deck would. So we'll just keep this, and we can shuffle away this complete. We'll just take our time. There's a Force of Will. I'll lead with the island in case I want to cast the Brainstorm. I want to keep my fetching options open as long as I can here, and save it for next turn. Okay. I want to go for a white source here. So let's go ahead and do our brainstorming. Okay, this is good. So we can get rid of the Cauldron Complete. This is basically free for the Brainstorm. And then we'll also do an island here. So I want to make sure to fetch before my draw step at least. So now we got some interaction, got a removal spell, got a threat. It just kind of showcases the power of Brainstorm, and you know, it's also important to note that Brainstorm is a card that you want to cast more frequently when you're looking to get rid of cards in your hand you don't want or improve your hand, versus Ponder being, you know, kind of looking for something a little more specific or just simply trying to make your land drops. I've mentioned before that I'm a big fan of Bosh N Roll, and he has a really good video on the he has several good videos in the Legacy format that aren't gameplay videos, but instead almost guides on how to use your cantrips, also how to use Wasteland. Good videos. You should check them out if you haven't already seen them and you're a fan of Legacy and are looking to improve. Null Rod. That doesn't bother me because I have the Stoneforge Mystic for Batter Skull. And all that does is stop the equipping of Umezawa's Jitte and my Sword of Fire and Ice. So I'm going to hold on to this Brainstorm as long as I can in the event that I draw those cards. So upkeep, we wanted to fetch away. We want our white basic here. So we'll get that. Move on to the draw step, see what we get. And we can always, if we really want to, we can always Prismatic Ending away this, but we just kind of have an abundance of removal spells here that we can use. I think that what I'm going to do if my opponent wants to counter the Stoneforge Mystic would be to Brainstorm into a different blue card and then use my Force of Will that way. But I mean, we've got a threat on board, we got the same number of lands, and we are ahead by one card. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. I guess we could look back and see if the opponent mulliganed. They did not, so we're doing pretty good on our exchange so far. I would like to get another white source if I want to activate the Stoneforge next turn and use something like Swords to Plowshare or Ending. But I don't know that I want to grab a Tundra yet. I may want a red source, like a Volcanic Island or a Basic Mountain. Maybe that Mentor's coming down. This is worth it to me to try to Force of Will. Okay. So we have the Complete. We don't want to get rid of that. I guess we could shuffle away a land and an Ending. And I plan on pitching this Snapcaster because it's obviously the only option that I have. Let's see. Do I want to draw one of these cards? I suppose I want to draw the Ending. Cool. Maybe they have a Fatal Push or something like that. And now we have a Pyroblast to kind of fight over any blue cards. Let's go ahead and get this mountain down. I could potentially see getting a Tundra out. Just go ahead and get that Cauldron Complete in there and start smacking away. It's just so ridiculous to me that both the artifact itself and the creature that it is equipped to both get indestructible. I think this card, you know, would have been a little bit more reasonable if the equipment itself didn't have what am I trying to say here? Didn't have indestructible, but who knows? I could see myself getting either Volcanic Island, Mountain, or Tundra with the Scalding Tarn. I mean, obviously those are the only lands that I can actually get with it, but let's see. Yeah, nothing I can do about that. can't equip it now, but like I said, we have 2 endings, one of which can be aimed at this Null Rod here if for some reason we find ourselves at 7 lands wanting to equip it. Yeah, we're going for the Pyroblast here. And I think that we're just going to get the Mountain. We already have 2 blue sources. And then hopefully our opponent doesn't have, I mean, they don't have a blue source here. Maybe I should plan on eventually making it to 7 lands. Or, here's what we can do. We can go for the Stoneforge Mystic. We're going to go ahead and use that. And the question is, do I want to get Sword of Fire and Ice? And then Prismatic Ending, and then I can't cast it this turn, but I can put it on the battlefield with Stoneforge Mystic. Batterskull's another option, but I feel like if they Prismatic Ending away the token, I'm going to wish that I had. I'm thinking Sword of Fire and Ice is the way to go, especially if they have True Name Nemesis. I guess I can't activate the Stoneforge since I don't have white up. Maybe a Tundra would have been the better thing to get with that Scalding Tarn. Oh, you know what? I needed the red source to Pyroblast the True Name Nemesis, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to Prismatic Ending the Null Rod, and then not having the second white source is kind of biting me. Hopefully we can draw into that, or draw into a Jace. You know, we do have a lot of basics set up here for Jace. Maybe Sword of Fire and Ice wasn't the right choice, since they are primarily like a white deck in terms of their removal. White and black are their removal colors, but the main reason I wanted to go for that is because I don't really want to have my token, the Living Weapon, or the Germ token made by Living Weapon on Batterskull, exiled. And I have several Stoneforge Mystics here that aren't really doing a lot of good, and I would rather have a 3/4 that can attack, paying, draw me cards than, you know, a very mana-intensive card like Batterskull that can be fragile to Prismatic Ending. So sometimes I wonder if this deck wants a plateau for the reason that we just encountered, wanting a red source that can also help us cast multiple white spells. So just something to think about. Yeah, they pick up a Ponder that they can't even cast because they've got, you know, very few blue sources. A white source here would be great. You know what we could try to do is to Fairy. God, I just really wish that we had another land here. They have 3 cards that we know that they have a Ponder. They can't hardcast anything, so they would have to go down 2 cards to deal with this Teferi, which I think I'm okay with. And I guess I can make them invest the mana in Null Rod next turn. What I'm really hoping is to draw a white source here. A white source would just be great. Yeah. White card, white source, what's the difference, you know? And I think I'm just going to hold these Stoneforge Mystics back in case they have a removal spell for one of them that can't be aimed at the Teferi. I would imagine they probably want they want to get the Teferi off the field, obviously, to unlock more interaction. And I would imagine they also want to jam their Null Rod back so that I can't equip this Sword of Fire and Ice, because we've seen one True Name Nemesis, and the deck that I'm playing does only have one. But I've seen, you know, a few other lists out there, people that are using more than one. So Sword of Fire and Ice is pretty good against True Name Nemesis. because the protection from makes it difficult for us to attack, but the pro blue prevents that from blocking, so we can keep getting our guys through. And I would guess that we're going to see that Null Rod. Yep. Karaka's proving to not really do anything against our deck here. There's a lot of pros and cons to using Karakas. I think it's tough to win a main deck then. Alright. How do we navigate this here? I think we just need to get this Null Rod off the field. They're not going to be able to counter this. I was kind of concerned at first, but it doesn't really matter what we use here since we can't. So that's going to be gone. So now we've unlocked our equipment here. Wish we had a blue card for this Force of Will, but we don't. So, and I'm just going to leave these creatures back for the same reason that I did last turn. If I can get 2 activations off the Teferi, I'd be pretty tickled, but I would imagine their Baleful Strix is going to continue to peck away at his loyalty. But if they want to aim their Death Touch creature at my Planeswalker rather than blocking something, then that's okay with me. Okay, so this reminds me of the Bosh N Roll of One Mind Esper Mentor Unearth deck. There's that Mentor. Alright. Well, it's a good thing we have all these Swords of Plowshares. And I really like that our opponent's not going to be able to... Ooh, True Name Nemesis is a tough one. But we do have the Sword of Fire and Ice. I'm just really, really hoping that we can draw an additional white source, because not being able to use our Stoneforge Mystic and Swords of Plowshares is kind of a big deal here. Maybe I'm not as concerned about using the Swords to Plowshares, because if I get that Sword of Fire and Ice on the battlefield right away, I can attack. No, I'm having a hard time getting through all these monk tokens. Maybe I should just go ahead and Swords the... yeah, I think what I have to do is Swords the Monastery Mentor, and then just hard cast the Sword of Fire and Ice. That way next turn... okay, so here we're going to get a Tundra with this. So here's what we're going to do. First thing, we're going to plus our Teferi. We're going to get a Tundra. Let me zoom in on this. It always feels awful when you misclick on your lands. Then what we're going to do is we're going to Swords the Mentor here. And we know that's going to go away because we have Teferi. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to activate. We have to use the white. So we're going to activate. We're going to go ahead and put the sword on to the battlefield. We're going to equip that to this Stoneforge Mystic. And there's nothing we can do to protect the Teferi because they have the True Name Nemesis. So what I'd like to do is just go ahead and attack. This is going to clean up at least one monk token. Then next turn we can Swords and we can Ending. And hopefully by then we can clean up all of the white creatures on the battlefield so that we can connect with this Stoneforge Mystic, get ahead with some cards, and start using that shock ability to clean up the rest of the stuff on the battlefield. Because, you know, there is the potential that we would lose this race, because right now they have 7 power in the battlefield and we only have 4. And I think if I were them, I'd leave the monk token back unless they have another Monastery Mentor. I probably would have attacked with the True Name Nemesis because the True Name doesn't block the Stoneforge Mystic. Yeah, but maybe they're not thinking about that. I really like having access to the white removal here, the ones that exile, because it prevents a lot of the Unearth shenanigans. Okay. Oh, we don't have our Teferi anymore. Alright, well, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to go ahead and get this Flooded Strand down. I'm really tempted to get another white source here. Although if I get an island, then let's get a Plains. Let's just do that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to attack with the Stoneforge Mystic, because we want to draw a card. We probably want to shock the Baleful Strix. I hope this Force of Will works. I mean, they have 3 cards left in hand, so I could see them. Okay, Force of Will. I suppose that's okay. I mean, they're giving. Maybe it's not. I don't know why I was thinking that they were creating tokens, because this is the monk token. All right, so we're pretty behind here. But we are going to gain some life, which is going to help us in our subsequent turns. Do we want to swords anything here? We could swords the... I think I'll probably just save the swords for a subsequent Monastery Mentor out of them. I'm not sure how many that deck plays. I would guess between 2 and 4. So we have another Prismatic Ending in the event of an extra Null Rod. I'm just not going to block here. Really wish we had that Teferi still, but again, there's not really much we can do about it. Plague Engineer, alright. Stoneforge Mystic can deal with that. Merfolk. Did they already get rid of our true name? Nope. Alright, so what do we want to do here? Probably swords their guy here. So we'll start with that. I really hope they don't have a counterspell, but if they do, we can still Prismatic Ending the Engineer. I'm less concerned about the Engineer being able to keep the True Name Nemesis off the battlefield, and more concerned with the fact that it's something that can block this Stoneforge Mystic after I equip the Sword of Fire and Ice to it. Oh man, we didn't equip the sword. Well, that's a huge blunder on my part. That's pretty disappointing. Alright, well, all you can do is move forward. And we're just going to get the Jit down. You know, I'm not going to tease having interaction here. MTGO is such a nice tool to have access to, but when you accidentally click through your steps, it's pretty disappointing. So we're pretty behind here on the life total race, but if we're able somehow to get this Jit on our Stoneforge Mystic, we can start gaining quite a lot of life every turn. That's going to soak up the damage from the True Name Nemesis and the Baleful Strix, so Counterspell would be good here. Pyroblast is maybe not what we were looking for, but let's see here. Let's go for the Prismatic Ending on the Monk token. I would imagine because the Snapcaster Mage stayed back, they probably have a removal spell or a plan to keep the Sword of Fire and Ice off of this, but we'll see. I hope that they Force of Will this, because I'd really like to use this Pyroblast. There you go, hardcast that Force. Let's get this Pyroblast in here. And if they have another Force, there's nothing they can do. There we go. Let's get this thing equipped here. Now we're cooking with gas. All right, we got both of our equipments this time, so we don't have to worry about clicking through. Very slowly press R1 key, and we're gonna nail this Baleful Strix. And I think we're just gonna gain some. You know what we could do is gain 2 life and kill the Snapcaster Mage. Let's see. I think that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna do it now. And we got our Jace here, so yeah, having an active Stoneforge Mystic, or excuse me, an active Sword of Fire and Ice with Jace when our opponent's is going to be at 2 cards in hand with just a True Name Nemesis here is going to take us a long way. Yep, and then we won the match. Sweet. So, one of the things that I'd like to mention is the Sword of Feast and Famine that was in the sideboard for Balenciaga and Boba's list, and my desire to replace that with Sword of Fire and Ice. And I understand that there's probably a reason why B&B has chosen that equipment, but it's not something that I want to play with in Legacy. I much prefer to go with the Sword of Fire and Ice, and this is kind of a good showing for it because as busted as Legacy can be with its combo decks, I think what people ultimately want to do is play fair blue mid-range decks. And Sword of Fire and Ice is really good at that. I mean, being able to push extra damage, shock your guy, draw me a card, that's just going to get you so far in those, especially when people are playing with cards like Lightning Bolt, Dragon's Rage Channeler, Ragavan, all things that aren't so effective against a creature that has Sword of Fire and Ice. I think this has been a good showcase of the reasons why you would want Sword of Fire and Ice over Sword of Feast and Famine. So thanks a lot for joining me. Let me pull this deck list up again in case somebody wanted to look at it. But thanks a lot for joining me today. Take care.